going to get into it. We're going to move on to the bum of the week. Okay, bum of the week, a little bit of a lighter note. Man, the Commanders. There were so many good candidates for this week. The Eagles played poorly, but there wasn't really any one player on that team that played poorly, so it's kind of hard to pick that because, it's the whole team. Kirk Cousins is a prime example. We saw Kirk Cousins, we're like, oh yeah, it's got to be Kirk because 3 interceptions to 1 touchdown to a low completion percentage, low QBR. It's like Kirk Cousins, who's one of the best teams in the NFL right now with the Vikings. Got to play better than that. And then Jen was like, oh yeah, what about Carson Wentz? Because he threw a couple interceptions as well. I was like, oh yeah, what about Ron Rivera? Because for those of you that didn't see the press conference after the Commanders game, I don't remember exactly what was said, but one of the guys was asking asking about the quarterback decision to play Wentz over, let's say Heineke or someone else going into this game versus someone else. And trusting your season's not going to be ended on Wentz basically because they could have been eliminated last week. And then Ron Rivera's like, wait, we could be eliminated this week? Oh, I didn't know that. And then they got eliminated that week, so they're done. Doesn't matter what. There's no chance they make the playoffs unless, I guess, there's some massive stat correction that changes the outcome of a game this past week, but it's not going to happen. The Commanders are officially eliminated. Ron Rivera, you've done a lot as a coach. You were a veteran coach in this league. You did a lot of great things with the Panthers. You changed this team around midway through the season and ended up giving them some hope with Taylor Heineke. But then you played Wentz and didn't know that your season could be over this week, and that's something that most NFL fans that watch this whole thing know. And for you as a head coach not to know that and know that you need to go into this game playing your hardest, it seemed like his mindset was one of the things like the Titans this past week, which is let's rest everyone because it doesn't matter if we win or lose this game. What matters is the next week's game against the Jaguars. It seemed like he was in that mindset, even though that's not what the case was for the Commanders. But either way, he's bummed. Carson Wentz obviously bummed because he played a horrible game, 3 picks, gave the Browns the victory there, and Browns aren't going to be in the playoffs either. But it's just.
Well, bum of the week goes to him because his favorite wide receiver is apparently Grant Delpit and Denzel Ward for the Browns. I mean, that was an absolute atrocious showing out of Carson Wentz. There was no excuse for Ron Rivera to start him over Heineke. Heineke has played better all year, and Wentz is just not. So
well, the thing that I thought about,
really anything else you can say about that.
The thing that I was thinking is okay, start Wentz because as much as I think Wentz is not a good quarterback, especially after his play against the Browns, I don't think Taylor Heineke is that great of a quarterback either. Honestly, I think there's a reason he's been a backup for so long and he's not starting. And I think Wentz is probably backup at best position at this point too. But if I looked at it maybe before, I think I probably would have considered starting Wentz too if I was Ron Rivera this week over Heineke because Heineke wasn't the reason they were winning games. It was that defense that's been locked down, and he's been making plays, but he's also had a lot of turnovers. And so I think I would probably still would have gone with Taylor Heineke, but had Wentz warm on the bench in case Heineke starts playing poorly, and vice versa. So if I decided to start Wentz, let's have Heineke on the sideline. So when Carson Wentz starts 3 picks, we can put in Heineke and turn this thing around maybe. And that didn't happen. So they've been officially eliminated. I think that Ron Rivera's head coaching job is now up in the air. I don't know if it necessarily was beforehand because there's a lot of issues with that team outside of the coaching. Ron Rivera is not the issue with that team. At this point, it seems like he's a issue with that team. But I guess at this point, his job's probably on the line because I don't know how you as a head coach who just a couple weeks ago was definitively in the playoffs. You have yourself a seed and you're not even tied with anyone else. You have that as long as you don't choke the rest of the season. You have that playoff spot, and then lose it because you didn't know that you could be eliminated this week. Because at the end of the day, they could have lost this game with Taylor Heineke as well, and maybe would have. I mean, the Browns played well aside from the fact that there was a lot of turnovers. They just played well. But not knowing, there's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for not knowing what the stakes are of any individual game. So I don't know.
Not to mention.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, not to mention if you're a head coach of a team, you want to make sure that even if it's a game that it's going to be tight, you still want to play your heart out because the Titans, they didn't have a lot of starting players. They still played their hearts out against the Cowboys. Yeah. Maybe they win out. Maybe they might score more than they anticipated, testing out their new quarterback and all that. Who knows? They still went into that game with that mentality. They gave the Cowboys a ton of pressure, and they played their hearts out. Even if you don't think that you're not going to win this week, still you have to put the pressure down, and I didn't see that at all from the Commanders. I probably would have started Heineke only because he's had enough rapport with the team so far and trying to get them into the playoffs. But still, as a coach, you have to know what the stakes are. You have to know the probabilities. You need to know all these things, especially if like you have 4 or 5 teams in the hunt and you're one of them. You want to do everything in your power to secure a dub. The fact that he didn't know that they could have been eliminated, honestly, embarrassing. Totally embarrassing. It's not the same situation as the Titans do, where like, okay, they can lose this game if we have everyone healthy for the Jags this coming week, then we're fine with this, but we're still going to play our hearts out.
Well, see,
he didn't seem like to have that mentality.
That's the thing with the Titans, though, is like their win or loss versus the Cowboys did not matter at all. If they had won or lost, them playing against the Jaguars is what mattered for the win or lose, because they would have had a tied record or a winning record versus them, but they would have had the divisional tiebreaker win. And so the Titans benching players, it makes sense there. Not because I think it's good for teams to intentionally lose, because I hate when teams tank, but that wasn't a situation where the Titans are tanking for a good pick. They said, let's rest our starters because we can still make the playoffs. All that matters is that last game of the season, because whether we win or lose today does not affect at all anything in terms of their playoff making. All that mattered is that last game with the Jaguars. And so that makes a little bit of sense. And the Commanders not being in that position because they're fighting for a wild card spot, which last week there was a good handful of teams still in that for the NFC. And even if you didn't know you could be eliminated, why would you not want to play your best knowing that you are in the hunt between them, the Seahawks, the Packers, the Lions? Like, those are some teams that have been getting hot. You have to play your heart out so you can win that game. So if Ron Rivera loses his job, fine. I don't really care about the Commanders as a franchise, so I don't know if they like Ron Rivera. I'm guessing not at this point, especially for starting Wentz. I'm guessing Wentz will not have a starting job next year. I don't know how he had one this year, but he certainly won't have one next year. No chance. He will be a backup.
I think this just showed, the fact that they have given Ron Rivera way too many chances with this team, and with a second chance at coaching after the debacle that was the Panthers. And I really think, that this is kind of just Ron Rivera's fault. The whole organization as a whole is just kind of toxic. Not to get too crazy with, things, but just kind of has a toxic and, losing culture. And, you see that in almost like every facet of what is going on with the Commanders. So hopefully he loses his job, because I like to see NFL teams that are good and that actually can, do well and play well, like, the Lions turning it around this year and, actually playing well after being so terrible for so long. But, frustrating to see for sure.
Yeah,
if you're a Washington
the last
fan.
thing I'll say about the Commanders, this is the third and final reason they're bums of the week, aside from Ron Rivera and Carson Wentz. They announced their new mascot. I didn't realize they didn't have a mascot until they announced their new mascot. It is a pig in like a maroon military hat, and his name is Major Tuddy. So I will leave it at that. You know how awful it is just by me saying it. It's horrible. So that is another reason. Everyone hates it. All the articles talking about it are like, this is
garbage.
Getting a thumbs down by every fan. So that's bum of the week. You guys are bums. This is his second to last.
At this point, call them the Washington Warthogs.
Oh, Washington Warthogs. All right, Washington Warthogs, you're bum of the week. We'll move on.